Imagine something unimaginable. A boy who was declared dead not once, but 3 times, miraculously returns to life. But when he opens his eyes, he not only receives a second chance but brings with him a message so profound and surprising that it seems to come from a place beyond our earthly reality. A place many of us dream exists, long to know, but rarely hear direct accounts about. This is the incredible story of Landon Whitley, a boy who ventured to the edge between life and death, crossed into the unknown, and came back with an urgent message. Landon claims to have seen Jesus, and what he told him is something you need to hear, especially if you've ever wondered about the existence of another life or what happens when we close our eyes for the last time. This story could be the answer you've been searching for. Get ready to embark on a journey that defies logic, breaks down doubt, and takes you straight to the heart of a divine mystery. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're interested in hearing more amazing accounts that challenge our understanding of life, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. What's coming is something you won't want to miss. It all began on an ordinary Sunday in 1997. Like many families, the Whitleys cherished their time together on weekends. Their routine was simple yet meaningful. They attended church in the morning, returned home for a peaceful lunch, and spent the rest of the day relaxing. However, on this particular Sunday, something extraordinary was about to happen. It was an apparently normal day. Julie Whitley, a devoted mother, was talking with her husband Andy as they drove along familiar roads back home. In the back seat, their young son Landon gazed out the window, completely unaware of what fate had in store just a few minutes away. The sun shone brightly, filling the car with a warm golden light that made the journey feel calm and routine. Suddenly, everything changed. The calm was shattered by the sound of a siren. An ambulance was rushing toward an intersection. The Whitley family had no time to react. The impact was so violent that their car spun out of control. The sound of twisting metal and shattering glass filled the air. Julie was left stunned and disoriented as the peaceful day turned into a nightmare in broad daylight. When the car finally stopped, an overwhelming silence took over the scene, broken only by the sound of approaching sirens. First responders arrived quickly, but as they assessed the wreckage, it became clear that the situation was extremely serious. The vehicle was completely destroyed, almost unrecognizable, crushed by the force of the collision. Inside the car, Andy Whitley had tragically lost his life on the spot. His existence ended in an instant. Julie, trapped in the wreckage, miraculously survived despite severe injuries. Rescuers worked frantically to free her from the mangled metal, but soon their focus shifted to young Landon, who lay motionless in the back seat. He wasn't breathing. His condition was critical. Landon was rushed to the nearest hospital as paramedics fought to keep him alive. He had barely a pulse, and his breathing was shallow, signs that his body was on the brink of collapse. Despite all efforts, the unthinkable happened. Landon was pronounced clinically dead. The medical team exhausted every possible measure, but there was no response. It seemed that his short time in this world had come to an end. Meanwhile, Julie, still grappling with her own injuries, received the devastating news of her husband's death. The pain hit her with indescribable force, but amidst her agony, she couldn't stop thinking about Landon. She clung to a faint hope that somehow he would survive, even though doctors had already warned her to prepare for the worst. In the operating room, the fight to save Landon continued. His heart stopped 2 more times, and miraculously, the doctors managed to revive him on both occasions. Each time his heart stopped, it was as if a door to the beyond opened a little wider. Landon seemed to be suspended between 2 worlds, pulled by invisible forces dragging him back and forth. The medical team worked tirelessly. Their faces reflected a mix of concentration and anguish as they gave their all to keep the boy alive. It felt like they were witnessing a battle between life and death, a struggle in which Landon's soul teetered between staying in this world or crossing into the next. Overwhelmed by pain and fear, Julie prayed desperately. Her prayers were not just words but anguished cries directed at God, begging him to spare her son's life. She felt her faith being tested like never before. She had already lost her husband, and the thought of losing her only son was unbearable. She whispered over and over, "Please, God, don't take him." Not him. For the doctors, the outlook was grim. Landon's chances of survival were slim, and in the unlikely event he pulled through, they feared he would suffer irreversible brain damage. After all, how could someone be declared dead 3 times and not suffer severe consequences? The situation seemed to defy all medical understanding, leaving both the doctors and Julie facing the unexplainable. They prepared Julie for what seemed inevitable. The doctors explained that if Landon woke up, he might never be the same. He could be trapped in an incomplete version of himself, with fragmented memory or an unrecognizable personality. Despite the discouraging prognosis, Julie refused to give up. Deep in her heart, she believed her son's spirit was stronger than his fragile body. She clung to the hope that if Landon returned, he would do so as the same boy she had always loved. The days turned into weeks as Landon remained in a coma, motionless and connected to machines that kept him alive. Julie stayed by his side, spending hours sitting by his bed, holding his hand as if her touch could bring him back from the abyss. The doctors, though vigilant and dedicated, could not hide their doubts. They had seen too many similar cases and knew that the outcome was rarely favorable. But Landon was not like other patients. His story was different. Amid the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the cold glow of hospital lights, Landon's body appeared inert. However, his spirit was not at rest. While his physical form remained immobile, his consciousness had traveled to a place beyond human understanding, a realm that few have visited and from which even fewer have returned to tell the tale. Later, Landon would describe his experience as something indescribable. His spirit rose, detaching from his body and leaving the hospital room behind. He found himself in a place so peaceful and beautiful that it felt like a dream, though it seemed more real than anything he had ever experienced before. There, all his senses were heightened. Colors were more vibrant, sounds formed a celestial harmony, and an overwhelming peace enveloped him like a warm blanket. Landon was certain of one thing: he had crossed into heaven. He remembered walking along golden paths that shone as if they radiated light from within. The warm, gentle air seemed infused with love. There was no visible sun, yet the entire place was illuminated by a light that seemed to come from everywhere, as if the very atmosphere was made of light and energy. As he walked, he saw figures bathed in a golden glow. At first, he didn't recognize all the faces, but he felt an immediate and deep connection with them, as if they had always been part of his life. He soon realized that these figures were family members who had passed away long before he was born. Although he didn't know them in life, he felt surrounded by unconditional love and a warm welcome. Among them, Landon noticed 2 small children who smiled at him sweetly. At the time, he didn't know who they were, but their presence filled him with an inexplicable tranquility. Later, he would learn that these children were his siblings who had passed away before his birth. His parents had never told him about them, and Landon had no way of knowing of their existence, but there they were, welcoming him with open arms and infinite tenderness. Then, in the midst of this paradise, a different figure appeared. This light was brighter, warmer, and more intense than anything else in that place. Although Landon had never seen him before, he instantly knew who it was. It was Jesus. No introductions or words were needed. The recognition was immediate, and with it came a wave of love so powerful that Landon broke into tears. Jesus didn't look at him with judgment but with an indescribable compassion and affection that dispelled all fear, all doubt, all earthly pain. Jesus didn't speak with words, but his message resonated directly in Landon's soul. It was as if every thought, every feeling, was communicated in a way that transcended human language. He told Landon that it wasn't his time yet, that he had to return. Landon had a mission to fulfill. Jesus gave him a clear and urgent message. He needed to return to Earth to share a truth that would change lives. Heaven is real. Life doesn't end with death. Every person has a divine purpose, and his story was meant to inspire hope and faith in others. Although Landon didn't want to leave that place, he understood that he had to. He knew his time there had not yet come and that his task was on Earth. It was a sacrifice to return to a world of pain and suffering after having experienced such perfect peace, but he understood that his mission was more important. In an instant, the vision disappeared. Landon felt as if an invisible force was pushing him back, pulling him through a tunnel filled with light and warmth. Finally, he opened his eyes slowly, dazzled by the cold fluorescent light of the hospital room. He was back. Landon had returned from a place that many only imagine, with a message that would change not only his life but also the lives of everyone who heard his story. Doctors and nurses rushed to his side, incredulous at what they were witnessing. After being declared dead 3 times, Landon was not only alive but fully conscious. The medical staff, still in shock, began running tests, searching for signs of neurological damage, memory loss, or cognitive impairment. They found nothing. Landon defied all odds. With surprising strength for someone who had been in a coma for weeks, he squeezed his mother Julie's hand. Feeling his touch, Julie couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her face. Her son had come back, whole. It was a miracle that no one could explain. Yet the most astonishing moment came when Landon began to speak. At first, his voice was barely a whisper, weakened by the long period of immobility, but the words that came out of his mouth left everyone speechless. Landon described a place that seemed like it was taken from a dream. He spoke of golden paths, a light that didn't come from any sun, and a peace so profound it couldn't be compared to anything on earth. However, what truly left Julie stunned was when he mentioned 2 children who welcomed him with smiles full of love.